So, if you have nothing else to do and you dare yourself to watch the show and give it a shot, I'd say definitely check it out under my risky recommendation.
Damn, was I young and thin at that time. A lot of things have changed since then. But one thing still remains though. Despite the success Friendship is Magic gained, my recommendation of the show is still considered risky, but for a different reason. The aftermath of the hype, or more specifically, newcomers, people who are new to watching the show. I got my coffee. It's time for another little chat. So, despite that Friendship is Magic ended back in 2019, and that the show in general reached over 10 years of its airing, there still is some relevance, but not as big as it was before, obviously. There's still some fan-dedicated material every once in a while. And after all the hype these years, and with Generation 5 around the corner, there's always a good chance that there may be some new followers seeking interest. It just begs the question as to what is the best way to recommend it. Start from the beginning and watch in a chronological order? Show the best episodes like Pinky Pride and The Perfect Pair? Share the episodes you enjoyed thinking they'll have the same impression, or what they thematically connect with? Well, no actually. While it may work for some, I'm going to break down my reasons here and then provide my conclusive take. Firstly, I will admit that my experience in watching the show was from the very start. That was always my personal preference to anything, slice of life or not. The ability to see the growth of the show is somewhat satisfying in me for both the perspective of the show and the staff members. However, this method can be a bit of a chore to others. There are some episodes that aren't worth as much attention, and that can lead to being impatient and thus losing interest after a little while. Not to mention, whenever it came to season 1, a lot of people were harsh on the pilot. What also doesn't help is that when compared to the later seasons, there's only half a chance of getting a good impression. It is doable by being selective on what episodes can work when introducing someone to the show, and I also think season 1 gets a little too much flack as it was bound to make mistakes considering the show was still new. But all things considered, it's still a difficult way of showing a newcomer to the show without making the scenario too awkward. But if season 1 doesn't work, what's wrong with sharing them the top favorite episodes from the fandom? Simple, it raises expectations too high. Episodes like Pinky Pride and The Perfect Pair are often looked at as an above average than usual episode, a special treat more specifically. Watching them the first time will give the first viewer the impression that it's the show's standards, and any actual episode watched afterwards would lead to a lukewarm reaction. Sharing a similar experience of my own, Keyframe introduced me to Steven Universe for the first time. I was shared a clip where Lapis was escaping Earth. It had a serious tone and felt something important was going on. I had this impression that it was a somewhat serious show compared to the other titles on Cartoon Network. To this day it arguably is, but when I started watching the first episode of Steven Universe,
Cookie Cat! He's a pet for your tummy! Cookie Cat! He's super duper yummy!
yeah, a completely different tone. Now thankfully I didn't turn away. I just had to reprocess that the cartoon was open to silly antics and that not everything was going to be serious. So imagine if someone saw the most beloved episodes of Friendship is Magic the first time and then sat through a mundane episode afterwards. Would they have the same excitement and anticipation? Some can and are willing to get through it, just like how I had to rethink Steven Universe. But for the most part, I highly doubt it. But even when sharing my experience to exemplify my point, that can differ with others. In particular, a certain episode that may bear a closer connection, and vice versa. For instance, when I did my Season 2 countdown, I mentioned that Sisterhood Social is an episode that can relate well to those who had sibling relationship problems. Only to find out that someone who would meet that criteria stated that they didn't have that connection. When Keyframe and I reviewed Hearts and Hues Day a while back, we both agreed that it wasn't the best episode to recommend for a newcomer. But once again, I received a comment claiming that the very episode is what got them into the show itself. I'm not exactly sure how the schmoopy-dooby talk would catch their interest, but I guess to each their own. And that's the thing, entertainment is subjective to everyone. So what this all boils down to is really a case-by-case basis. Recommending the show has been a huge part of when I reviewed episodes in the first place. Albeit there were an endless amount of flaws in the long run, but it taught me a lot. So what is my answer to recommending the show for first-time viewers? Well, sorry to sound underwhelming, but it's all a matter of what people's interests are. Everyone has different tastes in what is entertaining for them. If you like adventure, you'll get some of it. If you like comedy, you'll get some of it. The biggest glaring mistake bronies have made over the years was claiming that the show was epic or deep or mature. This was somewhat talked about when I addressed the perception and expectation in one of my previous videos. It plays up the answer here, which is primarily remembering the show's true identity. It is centered on some down-to-earth conflicts that even adults can relearn from, the kind that are mundane and provide entertainment out of it. And yeah, some action, some adventure, and some comedy are put into it to provide some variety. But something many people forget is that what made Friendship is Magic so successful in the first place was respecting its target demographic on a universal level. The previous generations were too patronizing that it almost felt insulting to watch. When Lauren Faust was in production of the show, she wanted to make sure that it would appeal to families and not just little girls. Just a simple, fun animated show like a lot of successful titles have done for that very reason. Does this come off as a trial and error? Absolutely. You can't force someone to like what you like, and that's obvious. But to whomever is new to the series, it does take a grain of salt on what episodes people recommend. And for some, a bit of patience is needed, especially if they ever had a general interest to begin with. For the most part, remember the show's said true identity, and don't set their expectations too high. For all I know, all the episodes I mentioned here may catch their interest, and the suggestions in which I broke down may work for them just as much as it worked for you. With those who are experienced with the show, maybe let me know your thoughts and suggestions. Especially with Generation 5 around the corner, it would be appropriate. Until next time, this is GoldenFox, and take care.